I believe that most problems can be solved through open communication. If I am unhappy or worried about something, I will always discuss it and not hush it up. This is in stark contrast to my wife, who refused to communicate with me 20 years ago, which led to the sudden collapse of our marriage on Thursday morning. Tony. I returned home to check if I had forgotten my phone. He wasn't in the office, and I already checked my car. I had a meeting with Dave McGregor scheduled for that day. If everything goes smoothly, the fee will be in the thousands. As a local, competitive and reliable option, we practically guaranteed the business unless I managed to displease the owner at the last moment. Dave mentioned that he had some family matters to settle first and asked me to contact him at his personal number to clarify the details of the meeting. Unfortunately, this number was only stored in my phone, so it was extremely important to find it. As I drove, I sang along to Santana's song, playing through the car's multimedia system. Despite the fact that the original was performed by another band, I liked Carlos's version better, as it seemed more polished. Do you believe in fate? I didn't believe it before, but I was amused by the coincidence. When 3 conspiracy theorists came into the bar, it seemed too perfect to be a coincidence. When I reached for the front door, coming the last verse of the song that was still playing in my head, I found it locked. Assuming that she must be in the garden, I remembered that in our small village, it was customary to lock the door when we were at home. Maybe she's busy in the garden. I thought. I took the key, unlocked the door, and went inside to check if Carrie had left my phone on the hall table. To my horror, he wasn't there. My smartwatch beeped, meaning that it has successfully synced with my phone. I felt relieved because now I knew that my phone was nearby. I quickly touched the watch screen and selected the find option. A few seconds later, a woman's voice rang out. I'm here. In a musical chime. I followed the sound into the living room, where it seemed to come from an armchair. Now everything has become clear. Most likely finishing my morning coffee, I absent-mindedly put the phone on the armrest of the chair. Without noticing it, the phone slipped into the gap between the cushion of the chair and the armrest. Letting out a sigh of relief, I took it out and immediately sent Dave a text message. Hi Dave, I hope everything is okay. Let me know when you can meet. I have a flexible schedule. Tony, he replied, quickly explaining that family circumstances had forced him to leave for the north for a while. He mentioned that he had to leave early the next morning, but offered to meet at the King's Oak Hotel at 7 o'clock in the evening to discuss the details over drinks. I agreed and confirmed our meeting. Having sorted out my schedule, I went in search of Carrie to inform her about the change of plans for the evening, but she was nowhere to be found. Although the day was supposed to be Devo over me sitting at the kitchen table, I tried to make sense of her words and actions. Why would you lie? This disturbing realization hit me hard, leaving only one possible explanation in my head. I was puzzled by her whereabouts, as we didn't have phone trackers. Suddenly, I remembered that she had shown interest in my new company car, and we decided to purchase a smaller version for her from the same seller. Both cars were connected to the manufacturer's app on my phone, which gave me the opportunity of the cafe, intending to follow him home, but instead he decided to cross the road towards the shops. I took a short break and went outside, where I saw him and a small store. I followed him, holding on to the phone. The cashier was busy with the customer, and my target was inspecting the refrigerator cabinets. I was standing at the magazine rack in front of the counter and discreetly filming it on my phone, pretending to be talking on the phone, watching him as he walked to the counter. I casually FLIE names on the intercom. I noticed one name, K. Bennett. I quickly took a picture of him on my phone, glad that he was useful to me at that moment. Realizing that I had nothing else to do there, I headed back to the car, feeling overwhelmed by the chaos that had arisen in my life. When I reached the corner, I hesitated and then turned back to the cafe. Only 2 tables were occupied. Inside, a waitress came up to me, and I asked her quietly, do you happen to know a guy named Kyle? He lives in an apartment across LL. A hot drink on him, but the fact That two guys started threatening him came as a pleasant surprise to me. It was a turning point for me when I stopped reacting and started planning, and the office had the perfect environment for that. As the sales director of an equipment rental company, I had valuable connections and resources at my disposal. I started by discussing the situation with my boss, the owner of the company. Danish, I would like to inform you about my current situation at the moment. I am still fair welfare to some extent. At least I will try to create that impression despite not feeling hungry. I asked CLA, our sales manager, if I should order food there, and she approved. I still can't remember what I ate that lunch while CLA was away. I started cybercrime Kyle Bennett by scrolling through his Facebook page. Is he your friend? CLA asked cheerfully, looking over my shoulder at the photos of Kyle and his buddies. I clicked on the status of his relationship, which read, "It's complicated." I came to my senses. I looked through the documents that I had prepared for the meeting with Dave McGregor. Danish and Sanjeev were happy with the amounts and gave me the green light to make small compromises if Dave proved difficult. As I left the office, I reminded myself that I had to remain professional and be on top. The evening ahead is going to be difficult no matter what happens. I spent the rest of the day thinking about my relationship with Carrie. Did she have any hints of unhappiness? I called D. Have seen them 3 times a year, not just once. Are they all involved in this? And they support each other? Was it really only Carrie who participated in such behavior and the others covered for her out of loyalty? I wrote a letter for the husbands of her friends. Hello everyone, I recently found out that Carrie was unfaithful. I believe she could have used a few evenings when she was supposed to be with your wives to meet other men. If my suspicions are correct, then either your wives helped her, and if case in my hands. Dave McGregor was already waiting for me at the front desk. He led me to a table in the bar where I noticed his half-empty glass, which indicated that he had been sitting there for a long time, perhaps watching my arrival in the parking lot. When I asked about it, he replied that he needed to be alone to collect his thoughts, and I respected his personal space without asking unnecessary questions. When we sat down, he asked me what I would like to drink. Showing his hospitality, I was that could lead to legal consequences. He agreed with our position, and we resolved this issue in an informal setting. Shaking hands. Great Tony, he said, sinking into a chair. You look a little out of place. Everything is fine. Do you need to talk it out? I shook my head. Earlier that day I caught my wife in a lie. As a result of the investigation, I witnessed her leaving another man's apartment. I overheard him bragging about a recent affair with his ex. When I told him about it, my voice faltered. Her deck shook my head, unable to explain anything. In the hallway, gesturing to the kitchen, I asked for coffee and promised to tell her about my day. While she was making 2 cups of coffee, I took my phone and briefcase and put them on the kitchen table. On the way home, I went over and over in my head what I needed to tell her, but every time my words changed because of the weight of pain, self-doubt, and shattered beliefs. It was difficult for me to even formulate them. It is very important to acknowledge these. Have you been? Her expression changed abruptly. It was obvious that she was worried. I meant our garden, not Kyle's garden. And who is Kyle? And are the children mine at all? Kyle is your ex, don't you remember? I muttered, feeling my thoughts running away. Tony, we've been together for so many years. I can't remember everyone I've met. I really can't remember anyone named Kyle. She looked uncertain. Perhaps you met him after our wedding. You both worked for the same company, and he was launching his social love. Carrie, did you find yourself in a dilemma between 2 men who cared about you? While I was waiting for her answer, she seemed to be in a daze. Let's see what Kyle adds to that. I chose video number 2. The next episode of the Kyle and Trish show has begun. Do you think this will become commonplace? The girl in the video asked. She's fine so far, but I'm sure the new girl from the coffee shop will do better. I'll give her a couple of weeks, and the excitement of resuming a relationship with her ex will and covering for each other. I'm ashamed of how far I've come to reveal the truth. Now I understand that it was a lie, but I would not like to be responsible for the destruction of marriages. She sat in silence, staring at me intently. Were you all involved? I exclaimed. She jumped in surprise. Just me and Jamie, she muttered. The others thought we were talking nonsense, but agreed to cover for us. I made some changes to my email and clicked the send button. Carrie was still hunched over, not understanding, went upstairs, leaving a copy of the divorce handbook on the table. I moved into an empty room expecting Carrie to try to make up. As a precaution, I put a chair under the door handle, but I didn't hear anything. Emotionally exhausted, I must have fallen asleep shortly after midnight in the morning when I came downstairs. After a restless night, she was not in sight, but there was a note waiting for me on the kitchen table. Dear Tony, I understand why you accused me of infidelity, and I am truly sorry that the situation was calm. I noticed that they were sitting in a booth at the back of the bar. Passing by the bar, I ordered a Glenfiddich with ice, and I was told to join my friends as my drink would be brought by the waiter. Finding myself in an unusual environment for me, I headed to their table. Lance stood up from his seat and extended his hand in greeting. How are you, Tony? Not really, I answered honestly. I turned to Margot, who also stood up, her eyes full of tears. She didn't seem to know how to comfort. Oh, be uninterested. Please listen to her carefully and try to understand that she may have kept this information to herself for a long time. I considered Lance's words, torn between his belief that I deserved to know and the fact that Margot preferred me to know nothing. The situation was reminiscent of the dilemma I was struggling with that fateful Thursday, deciding whether or not to reveal the secrets of Carr's friends to their husbands. Turning to Margot, I said softly, you've never lied to me directly. That it would prove otherwise. Margot tried to pull herself together. Despite the tears cascading down her cheeks, it might not have been the best idea to discuss this delicate topic in public, but she hadn't finished the conversation yet. At first, Carrie believed that her infertility problems were the result of long-term use of contraceptives. In the end, she resorted to secretly obtaining a sample of your biomaterial for analysis. She tricked a lab employee into believing that her husband had undated this secret, and no matter what decision I made, it seemed to me that there would not be a good outcome for any of the participants. If I had told the truth, it could have led to the fact that you would have lost your wife and daughter whom you cherished so much. But if I hadn't said anything, you would have continued to shower love on someone else's child. After careful consideration, I have decided that silence and blissful ignorance is the best choice for all of us, Margot said, pausing to take a SILT unwell and was still taking medication, so I decided not to drink. Now I regret that I was there. There was honesty in her voice. She added that the others, including Carrie, were already very drunk by that time. I doubt very much that even if they had accidentally overheard our conversation, they would not have remembered anything the next day. She looked at me intently. It seems to me that Carrie doesn't remember confessing to me at all. We continued to chat, but Margot had nothing more to say. Nat test. As I predicted, despite the anxiety this caused me, I knew that it was necessary to communicate the results to both children, so that they would understand the purpose of the test. There was no question of turning a blind eye to the situation. So what did the results show? Amy and Brian had the same mother, but different fathers, neither of whom had a biological connection with me. Carrie decided not to take the test, anticipating the negative consequences. Amy, who was 22 years old, was the eldest. The therapy, he couldn't see his wife in the same light. Their divorce was difficult, but it has now been finalized. Allison, like Margot, was able to convince her husband that she was trying to reason with Carrie and Jimia, but decided not to contact them anymore. She claimed that although she had never talked about Carrie and Jamie's behavior, if she had been asked, she would have been honest, despite the fact that she and her husband remained united. He allegedly urged her to distance herself from these two. Turned to her mother and leads a hidden lifestyle as friends who saw her tell me she looks very bad, and yesterday I found out that she is in intensive care. She has severe exhaustion of the body. She suffered from severe depression and refused to eat at all. The disease consumed her very quickly. Now she has completely disappeared from my life. My relationship with her friends is polite but distant. Claire from the office mentioned that she knows a few single friends who would be interested